to reflect a little bit on the Haftarah this morning. Before Barry chants. Right before the section we read this morning in Parashat Naso about the gifts of the heads of the tribes, the Torah discusses the rules concerning the Nazir. The Nazir is a person who takes a voluntary vow in order to access a higher level of holiness. The Nazir abstains from wine, from contact with a dead body, and from cutting their hair. Our Haftarah this morning from the book of Judges, Shoftim, tells about the announcement of the birth of Samson, in Hebrew Shimshon. The announcement is made to his mother by an angel of God. The only other birth announcement by an angel in the entire Hebrew Bible is the birth of Yitzchak. The angel tells the future mother, identified only as Manoach's wife, "You are going to conceive and bear a son. Drink no wine or other intoxicant and eat nothing impure, for the boy is to be a Nazir to God from the womb to the day of his death." The final pasuk, the final verse of the Haftarah reads, "The woman bore a son. She named him Shimshon, Samson. The boy grew up and God blessed him. The Spirit of God first moved him in the encampment of Dan, Ben Sorah, and Eshtaol." It sounds like the beginning or the promise of a holy life. The book of Judges covers the time between the conquest of Canaan and the division of the land among the 12 tribes described in the book of Joshua, and the establishment of the monarchy described in the book of Samuel. The book of Judges is in between. Who were these Shoftim, these judges? They were not actually judges as we would imagine them with black robes, adjudicating disputes between people. Adin Steinsaltz, in his book Biblical Images, claims that these judges show surprising parallels, suited in fact to a certain type of revolutionary leader in other periods of history and not only among the Jews. These are people of undistinguished extraction, meaning not part of the ruling elite, but possessing military gifts and powers of administration and leadership that make them saviors at a time of national crisis. The national crisis is the factor that conspicuously emphasizes the inability of the existing establishment to govern and impels the rise of a new leadership, these Shoftim, these judges. The book of Judges tells us that all the generation of Joshua died, and another generation came after them, which had not experienced God's deliverance or the deeds that had been wrought for Israel. And the Israelites did what was offensive to God. They worshipped other gods from among the gods of the peoples around them and bowed down to them and provoked God. God then handed them over to their foes, who plundered them, surrendering them to their enemies on all sides. They could no longer hold their own against their enemies. In all their campaigns, God's hand was against them, and they were in great distress. Then God raised up Shoftim, judges, who delivered them from those who plundered them. Everything then is good for a period of time, and they receive God's blessings, but soon the people relapse, and the pattern repeats over and over again. There are 10 judges in total in the book of Shoftim. Some of the names are more familiar as they appeared in some of the Haftarot throughout the year. Deborah, Gideon, Iftach, Samson. Samson is the last of the 12. And his story extends through 3 chapters in the book of Judges. Samson is really an anomaly among the other judges. He is some sort of a mythic character, apparently a giant, that can carry the gates of the city of Gaza on his shoulders, a kind of Jewish Hercules. But he's childish and immature. Given the announcement of his birth, one would expect that Samson would turn into a holy man, a wise person, and someone of great moral stature. Not so. Samson is selfish, and he can't even control his impulses. Remember that a Nazir is someone who makes a vow of abstinence regarding certain things, someone who exercises self-control. Samson can't control his impulses. He can't control his lust for women. He can't control his brute force. Can't control his mouth and keep a secret. Samson is not really a leader or a commander. He never galvanizes the people behind him like other of the Shoftim. Unlike other Shoftim, he does not form an army to fight for national liberation. He performs great deeds and heroic acts, but he is a loner. There is never anyone else with him to help him. He acts individually, and out of petty self-interest, he does whatever he likes, and he is consumed by a desire for personal revenge. He's focused only on what was done to him. One verse is, "As they have done to me, so I did to them." You may remember the most famous part of this story, which comes at the end of his life, and that is his relationship with Delilah, the woman who, according to the Midrash, was named for her capacity to weaken and diminish Samson. The word Delilah means to weaken, and she does weaken him. Delilah said to him, "How can you say you love me when you don't confide in me? This makes 3 times that you've deceived me and haven't told me what makes you so strong." Finally, after she had nagged him and pressed him constantly, he was wearied to death, and he confided everything to her. He said to her, "No razor has ever touched my head, for I have been a Nazirite to God since I was in my mother's womb. If my hair were cut, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as an ordinary man." The Bible then says, "The Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes. They brought him down to Gaza and shackled him in bronze fetters, and he became a mill slave in the prison. After his hair was cut off, it began to grow back. Now the lords of the Philistines gathered to offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon and to make merry. They chanted, 'Our God has delivered into our hands our enemy Samson.' When the people saw him, they sang praises to their God, chanting, 'Our God has delivered into our hands the enemy who devastated our land and who slew so many of us.' As their spirits rose, they said, 'Call Samson here and let him dance for us.' Samson was fetched from the prison, and he danced for them. Then they put him between the pillars. And Samson said to the boy who was leading him by the hand, 'Let go of me, and let me feel the pillars that the temple rests upon, that I may lean on them.' Now the temple was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there, and there were some 3,000 men and women on the roof watching Samson dance. Then Samson called to God, 'O sovereign God, please remember me, zochreni na, and give me strength, chazkeni na, achapam, just this once, O God. V'inakma nekam achad Mishte einai miplishtim, so I can take revenge on the Philistines, if only for one of my 2 eyes. He embraced the 2 middle pillars that the temple rests upon, one with his right arm and one with his left, and leaned against them. Samson cried, famous cry, Tamot nafshti im plishtim, let me die with the Philistines. And he pulled with all his might. The temple came crashing down on the lords and on all the people in it. Those who were slain by him as he died outnumbered those who had been slain by him when he lived. 3 chapters of the book of Judges are dedicated to this strange, unsavory character. Why is Samson one of the judges? And why did God choose him to save Israel from the Philistines? Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz writes, the purpose of the whole story of Samson may be to show us an aspect of divine manifestation. Though Samson was a paradoxical and unconventional sort of prophet, there is no denying that the divine plenty flowed through him. To be sure, most of the prophets who have come to deliver a message to humanity have expressed themselves in intellectual and even poetic terms, while Samson's vehicle of expression was through a superhuman strength, a physical prowess that so transcended the ordinary that it was obviously divine in origin. What was the spirit that moved him? The Midrash claims that it was the spirit of strength from God. And if so, the Spirit of God, which in other prophets appeared as words of wisdom and righteousness, appeared in Samson as enormous strength. He is there the prophet of divine power, expressed in physical force. His whole personality is a vehicle of this aspect of the divine, as is pointed out several times in the story. This is Adin Steinsaltz. I find Steinsaltz's approach deeply unsettling, even dangerous in its suggestion that divine power can manifest as brute strength, entirely divorced from wisdom, humility, righteousness, or justice. To claim that God acts through someone so impulsive, violent, and seemingly devoid of spiritual or ethical reflection risks detaching divine power from moral responsibility. It presents a theology in which strength alone becomes sacred, regardless of how it is used or to what end, a troubling and toxic idea. Rabbi Benny Lau takes a very different approach. Why did God choose Samson? To show us that when there is no stable government, no institutions, anything can happen. The book of Judges is about individual personalities that come and go. And in this context, there can also be an anomaly, a mutation. And you can end up with a leader in the form of a Samson. That's Rabbi Benny Lau. The book of Judges ends with the following verse. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did as they pleased. Ish hayashar be'enav yaseh. I agree with Rabbi Lau. The story of Samson is a big warning. And I think we can relate from our experience of the times we are living in. Look at this impulsive man, driven by ego and desire, violent in word and deed, and ultimately self-destructive. His strength is not tempered by wisdom or humility. His downfall is the direct result of his inability to master himself. Know any present leaders who may fit that description? If we accept the idea that divine power can manifest as brute force, detached from ethical grounding, we risk sanctifying violence and elevating raw power over moral vision. That theology, where strength alone is seen as sacred, is not only spiritually bankrupt, it is morally toxic. Samson's life holds up a mirror to our own cultural, moral, and spiritual crisis. Here, in Israel, around the world, we live in a time when force, fury, domination, and revenge are glorified, while compassion, restraint, and moral clarity are dismissed as weakness. We are witnessing an obsession with power over ethics and justice, the reframing of revenge as righteousness, the collapse of leadership into spectacle and performance, and the growing mistrust of nuance in favor of all or nothing thinking. There is an increasing impulse to dominate, to destroy, to win at any cost. Samson's story warns us where that path leads. It challenges us to look not just at him, but at ourselves, and to choose a different spirit, one rooted not in brute strength, but in moral vision, hopefully soon and in our days.